It all began on the fateful day the princess of Estia was ordered to marry Margrave Operd, a man decades older than her. The arrangement was nothing short of a political sale. Her hand traded for power and gold. During the negotiations, the old man addressed the Margrave. "I trust you've prepared the payment?" he said. The Margrave responded smoothly with a sly grin. "There's no need for concern. Haven't you handed over the finest treasure of the royal family?" His words dripped with cruel amusement. But the princess refused to be a passive pawn. If they sought to sell her like chattel, she would ensure the royal family of Estia bore eternal shame for their betrayal. Chastity was sacred among nobles, a virtue prized above all, so she resolved to discard it. Even if it meant surrendering herself to a stranger, she would not enter the Margrave's bed untouched. Silently, she vowed, she would leave an eternal stain on Estia's monarchy. The streets were thick with shadows as Leah moved through them, her cloak drawn tightly around her. Her gaze sharp as she scanned the dimly lit establishments lining the road. She pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of ale and the clamor of drunken patrons. A few eyes flicked toward her, but most quickly dismissed her presence, returning to their raucous conversations. She had made arrangements beforehand. Her companion for the night was to be seated in the farthest corner, cloaked in darkness for discretion. Her gaze swept the room until it settled on a figure shrouded in shadow, a man whose presence seemed to meld with the gloom around him. He sat motionless, a lone hand gripping a wine glass. Leah approached, her pulse steady despite the gravity of her decision. She tapped the table lightly, and the man's hand stilled. "Are you my company tonight?" she asked, her voice firm. A beat of silence passed before he responded, his voice rough, as if scraped from the depths of his throat. "It seems so." The sound was deeper than she had expected, not the smooth, refined tone of noblemen. For a fleeting moment she hesitated, but the thought of her purpose steeled her resolve. "Follow me," she said, covering the face. He obeyed, trailing behind her as they ascended a creaking staircase, leading to a secluded room at the far end. He opened the door, gesturing for her to enter first. The door clicked shut behind them. There was no turning back now. Leah turned to face him, and froze. With a single motion, he shed his cloak, unveiling bronze skin and dark brown hair, his eyes gleaming like molten gold in the shadows. Her breath caught. His features were sharp, striking, brutally beautiful, as if carved by something otherworldly. And those eyes, piercing, predatory, left no room for doubt. A stunned whisper escaped her. "Kurkin?" The man's brow arched, his gaze cool. "It's been years since anyone called me that. Nowadays they prefer savage." The last word dripped with bitter amusement. Most people saw Kurkins as monsters, wild, dangerous, and barely human. They were strong, beautiful, and impossible to ignore, but everyone feared their beast-like nature. Even so, Kurkins were valuable. In places where slavery was illegal, they were still bought and sold in secret. Princess Leah had seen Kurkin's slaves before, but never one like him. The way he watched her made her feel small. This man didn't look like a slave. With one finger he flicked off her cap, then tore away the ugly brown wig hiding her silver hair. His golden eyes studied her, her fine clothes, her delicate skin. "A noblewoman in a place like this?" His voice was deep, amused. "Did you get lost?" Leah swallowed. She couldn't tell him the truth. I followed the wrong person," she admitted. He smirked. "So you were looking for someone else? Someone cheaper?" Her face burned. She had made a mistake, and now she was trapped. If she was going to ruin her reputation, she might as well go through with it. Her hands shook as she reached for her dress. Before she could untie it, he grabbed her waist and lifted her like she weighed nothing. "Let me," he murmured. Then he threw her onto the bed. Her pulse raced as he leaned over her, his thumb brushing her lip. "Why are you really here?" he asked. She glared up at him. "Just do what I'm paying you for." His eyes gleamed. "Don't worry, I plan to make sure you get your money's worth. Then spread your legs." Leah had grown up hearing vulgar words from her half-brother, Blair, but none affected her like the rough command from the man above her. She tried to hide her discomfort, but her burning cheeks betrayed her. A smirk played on his lips as he watched her reaction. Without hesitation, his large hands tore at her clothes, the fabric ripping under his strength. He made no effort to be gentle, driven by something far less civilized. Leah shivered, her earlier boldness fading. Fear crept in. This was her first time, and with a stranger, no less. A cold draft brushed her skin. The dim candlelight and pale moonlight through the curtains cast a faint glow over her, illuminating her unblemished skin, smooth and untouched, like freshly fallen snow. The man studied her, his golden gaze trailing slowly. Instead of admiration, his expression darkened. "You're too thin," he muttered, gripping her wrist lightly, as if she might break. "Do they not feed you properly?" The absurdity of his comment broke through her fear. She exhaled sharply, then, acting on impulse, grabbed him. "Enough talking," she snapped. "Just get on with it." Unlike her, he was still mostly dressed. He said, "Then tell me how you'd prefer it." As he stripped off the remaining layers, Leah's breath caught. His body was a map of old wounds, thick, jagged scars crossing his torso, the largest stretching across his chest. Yet, instead of diminishing him, they only made him more imposing. A hand cradled the back of her head, tilting her face up. Their noses nearly touched, his breath warm against her lips. "Let's do this properly," he murmured. Then his mouth was on hers. The first kiss was soft, almost hesitant. The next was anything but. Heat flooded her senses as his lips moved with rough hunger, his touch overwhelming. She barely registered the sharp scrape of teeth, too lost in the dizzying intensity to question it. His touch, surprisingly gentle. When their lips parted, his attention drifted to the curve of her neck. The atmosphere thickened as his mouth traced lower, leaving faint marks in its wake. She arched instinctively, only to be anchored firmly by the hand supporting her back. Every sensation seemed amplified, the scrape of teeth, the warmth of his tongue, the way her body responded with traitorous eagerness. Her attempt to close her legs was thwarted by his firm grip, his golden eyes watching her reactions with unsettling focus. The more she tried to steady her breathing, the more her body betrayed her, heat pooling where his fingers teased through thin fabric. His question, spoken against her ear in a voice like dark velvet, made her freeze. The crude words hung between them, stripping away any remaining pretense of detachment. When she could only shake her head in response, his laugh vibrated against her skin. "Next time then," he murmured, the promise in his tone sending a shiver down her spine. What followed was a relentless assault on her senses. His fingers moved with purpose, drawing forth reactions she couldn't control. The slick sounds of their connection filled the quiet room, her muffled cries doing little to slow his determined rhythm. Tears welled unbidden at the overwhelming sensations, only to be brushed away by his free hand. The night, it seemed, had only just begun.